Always do that. I'm a night rider. Every time that I call past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire.
What's going on, bookworms, and welcome back to another episode of Bookmarks with Bump, the social commentary podcast where your favorite endurance runner, tool-setting tradesman, certified personal trainer, jack of all trades, master of none, comes by and stops through the lovely land of Twitter, collects a bevy of the world's greatest threads known to mankind. Threads being a series of tweets that were pinned together. They're not a published author. They're not somebody with the credence or the credentials. But we don't care about credence or credentials here. We are all about it. Okay? We dive right into it because here we like to, we like to just make things possible. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I think that's the biggest example that I've set in front of whoever is watching, in front of the people that I've inspired or motivated, or the people who look and hope I don't. But nonetheless, all I've done for the last 8-9 years is just show you what's possible in anything. Anything is possible at all. You can make a comeback from anything. You can do whatever it takes, because that's what it takes. You have to do whatever it takes to live the life you want. It's important to live the life you want. And in order to do that, you kind of have to maintain a positive mindset. No matter what challenges or walls or struggles you're up against, you have to maintain that positivity. And you got to think about the cliche sayings that everybody talks about and says are nonsense or garbage, but people have been saying them for decades for a reason. And I truly do believe that you are what you surround yourself with, who you surround yourself with. We are all just products of our environment, and you see that in various echo chambers throughout society these days. However, you are what you surround yourself with, and whether that be people, things, places, you are what you surround yourself with. And if you surround yourself with nothing, you surround yourself with your thoughts. Because you never truly are alone. If you have a conscience, if you have an inner monologue, you're always talking to yourself. You always have some frame or some sort of company. But you are never truly alone, especially when you're with your thoughts. And I think those are the things that we have control over, right? You can't control what another person is doing. However, you can remove yourself from their presence. You can remove yourself from their company. You don't have to surround yourself with another person. Our thoughts, on the other hand, that is something that we are completely in control of. And I think it's crucial, especially for people who are hardworking or people who are on the quest to achieving a goal. And when you really lock into a goal, whatever it is, you do oftentimes spend a lot of time alone, because those social norms, those gatherings, whatever those things might be, they might not be as attractive to you in the moment because of what you're trying to achieve. Your achievement is what you're really pushing for in that moment, and that's what you're really surrounding yourself with. And hopefully on your road to that achievement, the thoughts that you're surrounding yourself with are positive. There's a difference between a lingering worry and an awareness. At all times, be aware that anything could happen that could derail you from your goals or from your plans, but don't take every single step of that journey thinking of what might derail you. Because what you're in control of the moment is what you will definitely do. You have to make the actions every single day to make something happen, right? Something from the outside coming in and defecting that should be none of your main concern. It should always stay in the back of your mind, though. I understand overall awareness. Awareness is important. But then you dive into the realm of negativity. The more you move from awareness to focus, never put your focus on the negativity. Always put your focus on the positivity. Never put your focus on the outcome. Always put your focus on the process. We don't want to build expectations or get this kind of idea that you've already achieved that thing. There's work that it takes to get there, and focus on the work. It's just like we talked about last week or a couple weeks ago with Lou Holtz and informing our environment or changing our circumstances. It's all in our control if we allow it to be. It's just really big and really important that when you're alone, those thoughts, you change them. You make them the positive thoughts. You obsess over the positive things. Have the awareness of the negativity. I'm not telling you to be aloof or look at the world with rose-colored lenses. Being realistic, part of being realistic is doing everything you can to make the positive outcome possible and not prevent the negative from happening. A lot of times in football, which is what we're going to dive right into, obviously, but a lot of times in football, you'll see a team be up 28-14 late in the fourth quarter, and they'll play a prevent style of defense where they drop all of their safeties or their secondary back a few yards to prevent a huge chunk play from happening. But what happens when you do that is you allow little chips, and those little chips, they build up faster than those missed chunks. Don't worry about the chunks coming at you. Never worry about the chunks. Never worry about up chunking, those types of things. It's possible. You know that it's possible. Be aware that it's possible. But you have to look for those little chips before you look at those big chunks. And those little chips, part of preventing those little chips is taking the positive steps every moment that you can. That's what truly stops those little chips. Those little chips that I'm talking about in this football analogy here could be the 5-yard out route, and 2 of those makes a first down. And before you know it, you have 4 plays later where your team is backed up against the goal line when you were pushing them out of field goal range. You think about those little chips as 3-yard, 4-yard runs where you're dropping your secondary back and allowing a hole in the middle of the offense for somebody to run right through. You're not thinking about the little things. The little things need more of the focus than the big disaster. We live in like a society where people like to catastrophize things, and I talk about it a lot, how people are just nihilistic and looking for their own personal gain because they've already given up on the team building aspect of things. But I truly believe that I believe in the power of prayer, right? And they say that in the power of prayer, if you have more people praying for one thing, those positive outcomes come more often than if you silently pray and silently think. I think having a group rally behind, I think having that positive energy in the air around you while you're trying to achieve something, I think that's the make it or break it organic ingredient that truly helps build that team and helps bring success among more people. And it's hard to get people to buy into that. I'm noticing more and more these days, but I'm never going to stop because that's the life I want. And that's how I'm going to have to live it. Last week, we lived a so-and-so life here. I know, I get it. We had Thanksgiving. There was so much to be grateful for, and the gratitude was passed around like mashed potatoes. But I went 8-8 last week. Fortunately for you all, we advanced to 78-41 on the season. Last week we go 8-4. 4 of my picks didn't make it from last week, and that's okay. We talked about them in last week's episode. We talked about the Lions dropping one at home to the Packers. Nobody really saw it coming because of the lack of Packers offense, but in this game they put up 31 points and embarrassed Detroit at home. And then you had the Cowboys in a come-from-behind victory against the Chiefs. The Chiefs were battling there. The Chiefs came out, scored 2 touchdowns early in the game, and then zilch. They played a sandwich game. They scored 14 in the first quarter, 14 in the fourth, nothing in between, and that's when Dallas really made some body punches. So what they scored in the fourth quarter would be the knockout blow. Dallas upsets the Chiefs, and now they've collected 2 wins against the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Does that automatically make them a contender? I'm not really too sure, but what I do know is that they do not look like the team we saw week 2, week 3, where we doubted their defense. They are defensively stepping up in every sense that they were lacking in the beginning of the season. Their run defense looks amazing, and I think that helps them out tonight, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's get through last week first, okay? We have to go in chronological order here. It's important for the timeline. I'm not trying to ruin the flashpoint. The Bengals, they might have just ruined the entire season for the Ravens. I'm not sure, though. There's something going on in Pittsburgh, and people are not too pleased. But the Ravens drop one at home to the Bengals. So that's 3 upsets on Thanksgiving. Probably 4 if you had a mother-in-law you didn't want to come over. Maybe even 5 if somebody left the turkey in for too long and it didn't stay quite moist enough. If you had ham, shout out to you. Ham is always a good go-to. As much as I try not to eat pork, there's just something about a ham during the holidays where I could ruin every single bit of my digestive tract. Um, we'll move away from food and more towards the pigskin because the nighttime turducken was enjoyed by Joe Burrow and the crew. And I was sitting here in this chair a week or two ago saying there's no way that Joe Burrow comes back and saves the franchise. But the whole team was lifted behind Joe Cool as he came back into the starting quarterback position, threw for a mean 261 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I mean, they did what they do best. They ruined the AFC North, where you have an AFC North champion. The championship is going to be a toss-up between the Ravens and the Steelers, who are right now both sitting at 6-6. I really don't know what to do with the Ravens. This was a big one. Lamar Jackson's turnovers were a huge problem in this game, and probably all the difference because he's a very dangerous man with the ball in his hand. Without it, he's on the bench, and Joe Burrow is somebody who's just too decisive and too methodical as a quarterback to not pick apart this secondary who's been picking themselves apart all year. On Friday, Black Friday, the Bears in the Surprise Bowl were the surprise belle of the ball, dropping 24 on the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles had a really hard time scoring or moving the ball at all. Kyle Monangai, this is like a huge breakout season. I mean, it's his rookie season, but the way he broke out when DeAndre Swift went down with injury early in the season was a huge eye-opener to people that the Chicago Bears are actually the real deal. Any team, in order to have success and have a late push in a season, has to have a solid run game and a solid defense. And where their pass game is iffy, they more than make up for it. Well, having two running backs go for over 100 yards against the Philadelphia Eagles, who people fear as a defensive line, who people think nobody can run the ball on. Well, look at it now. It wasn't a matter of just bad tackling. It's this Ben Johnson offense, and what Ben Johnson is doing in Chicago. He's now turned two NFC North franchises around. Hats off to Coach in his first year over there. But as we dive into Sunday, there were 12 exciting games. 11. The most exciting was on Monday. And we started with the bubbling Carolina Panthers, who welcomed the decorated LA Rams team to Charlotte coming off a tough loss. It seemed as if the Rams would have a typical Rams game when they marched right down the field in their opening drive. But when the Panthers struck right back on a Chuba Hubbard screen, this game would then break wide open. The Rams' next two drives would result in as many interceptions as Matt Stafford had the entire season leading into that game. One going for 6 the other way. He threw a pick six in this game, which is kind of what he was known for back in Detroit. It all changed with that Sean McVay offense, but here he was just completely exposed against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers learned from last week's Monday Night Football game when they played the 49ers, where they just could not turn a defensive stop into an offensive score to save their life in that game. But showing signs of promise for the direction of the franchise, considering how quickly those Duolingo courses on translating defense into office went. It was probably written a lot better. Anyway, the Panthers took some Duolingo. They turned it all around. They were able to translate the defense into offense, and they scored. Every time they got the ball back, pretty much, they capitalized on every possession except for one. And when it mattered the most, it would be Bryce Young, the offense, and Jalen Coker, who had a huge game in this one. These two came together on a third down to allow Carolina to milk out the rest of the clock for them to win by 31-28 against the LA Rams, who people were talking about last week as a Super Bowl contender, and people are now questioning due to the fact they'll have to go through the Seattle Seahawks. Both of these teams are in a heated battle for the NFC West, and Seattle's defense is just as good as Carolina's, if not better, if not more experienced, I could say. I mean, Carolina's defense is they're gaining a bunch of turnovers. J.C. Horn, I think between J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson in the last 2 weeks, I think it's 6 picks, and that's incredible out of just 2 players. Out of a whole defense, that would be great. If my franchise's defense was able to grab 6 interceptions throughout the series, throughout the season, I'd be pretty pumped about that. I'd be, all right, we got some ball hawks back there. It's not won a game, but you can't score a touchdown every game, can you? The Panthers look very promising. Dave Canales, in his 3rd year, I believe, as a head coach, is showing signs of somebody who could be the face or the leader of the franchise for years to come. So let's see what's going on in Carolina as things move on. And that's going to matter a little bit more here because you have Tristan Wirfs. Tristan Wirfs is always making plays for the Buccaneers, except silently. I'm sitting here talking about Tristan Wirfs. You're probably wondering, who the hell is that? Tristan Wirfs is probably one of the best left tackles in the league, protecting the blind side of the quarterback, snap in and snap out. And he's been with the Buccaneers since the Tom Brady days, about 5 years ago. So he's only getting better. This Sunday, he scored a touchdown. Both teams were pulling out all the punches in this game. It was pretty much a back and forth slugger, but it would be the Bucs who rose to a hard-fought 20-17 victory, helping them in the NFC South, despite the Panthers piling on all those wins and gunning for the top spot. Another slugfest that took place between the Dolphins and the Saints. The Dolphins hit early with a long scamper from Devon Achane, but the Saints would show a ton of fight in this game, with Tyler Shuck and Olave finding a connection here. Minka Fitzpatrick would be the final completion that Tyler Shuck threw that would make the knockout blow inevitable to New Orleans when they lined up to score the game-tying 2-point conversion there. Minka Fitzpatrick would pick it off and run it all the way back for 2. The Dolphins would hang on and win 21-17. You had the Jets and the Falcons. Both of these teams came into the game touting different starters than the season opener at quarterback, trying to make something happen for their offenses. But as they exchanged jabs in the first quarter, special teams would shine in the opening punt of quarter 2 as the Jets forced a muffled punt and gained possession right on the 1-yard line. Breece Hall walked in untouched. He didn't really walk in. On this touchdown, Breece Hall looked as if he was sprinting full. It was amazing because by the time he slowed down, he was already out of the back of the end zone, but he was so excited to score. The reemergence of Kirk Cousins came a little bit in this game, and it was great performance out of Kyle Pitts, honestly. Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts had a bit of a connection last year, and you kind of saw some promise in the young Kyle Pitts, who we've been wondering where the hell he's been for years, ever since he got drafted with the 4th-round pick. The highest a tight end has been picked in years, and probably the least productive player to be picked at that pick in years. Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson had a great game. I believe it was 190 yards from scrimmage. I'm not really looking at it right here in my face, but that's just it was a lot. It was almost 200. They'd need every yard that they could get out of the offense, as the defense allowed the Jets to score with 2 minutes left in this game. Probably playing that prevent style of defense I was talking about earlier. The Jets scored 2 minutes left in the game and tied it. But the offense ran out of yards as Kirk could not connect and extend the game at all, allowed the Jets enough time to line up a game-winning field goal, and New York advances to 3-9 after this one. 27-24 win, and the Falcons, their hope in the NFC South is kind of all but dried up, with the Buccaneers leading the pack there, and the Falcons dwindling, and then you have the Panthers at 6-6 right now. So that's that division, it's not like it's completely out of there. The Falcons are 4-8. Say the Buccaneers just completely fall apart, they could end 7-10. There's 5 games left. Wow. Time flies, doesn't it? Anyway, the AFC South, they had a few showdowns as the Colts welcomed the Texans into Indianapolis, despite a hobbling horse at quarterback. That's right, their Colt, Danny Jones, and their high-impact offense is feeling a little bit of a limp. Dan Jones has a broken fibula, and for whatever reason, they're playing the guy with the broken fibula. I get it. I mean, he's made that offense look great. He's played great in it. Jonathan Taylor has benefited from that. Michael Pittman Jr. has benefited from Danny Jones being as good as he is, but you got a broken leg, and part of what makes Part of what makes Daniel Jones so threatening at quarterback is probably his legs and his ability to run. He can break out of the pocket and go for a 15-yard game, and defenses have to respect that, but they don't necessarily have to keep a man down if you know he's not running. And I don't see him running on a broken fibula like Terrell Owens was in the Super Bowl against the Patriots way back in the day. But I digress. The Jaguars jumped out to a quick lead in Tennessee while all of this limping was going on, and they dominated them, winning 25-3. So the Colts and Texans now in this AFC South, just this division is a mess. So the Colts and the Texans are playing. They're both AFC South teams. This game is going to mean a lot in the division. The Jaguars beating another AFC South team, that means a lot in the division, especially here at the end of the season, where a lot of these games are going to be divisional games. So big stakes here. Love a big steak. I'm going to get a T-bone, a filet mignon. These filet mignon games went on as the Colts and Texans limped right through the final quarter. The Texans struggle on offense all season. That's no mistake. The Colts' struggles are new with a broken quarterback, facing off against the best defense in the league. The Texans have earned their title. The Texans leaned on Woody Marks and trusted the defense to get it done late in the fourth quarter here. The Texans win 20-16. And with the Texans winning 4 in a row and the Colts dropping quite a few, the Jaguars now sit at the top of the AFC South, and we're entering a time in the season where every game matters, and that's the best part of football, is the end of the year. The defense of Cleveland would take care of the 49ers in the first half, limiting them to one lone Christian McCaffrey touchdown that came off of a Sky Moore punt return for 66 yards. He's been cleaning up all season, giving the Niners great field position, but in the final seconds of the half, Shedeur Sanders would even the playing field, finding Harold Fanning in the flat for a touchdown. And despite taking a massive sack, Sanders showed a great amount of accuracy in this game early. But as the game wore on, so did the tear, and the 49ers were able to squeeze out a couple of turnovers and maintain control of the field, edging out the Browns 26-8. The Vikings were visiting Seattle, and that opened up the afternoon slate. And here we go. We are all excited about what the Vikings can be with a new quarterback at the helm, because J.J. McCarthy was kind of slacking all season. And then you see the way Max Brosmer played. And it's almost as if J.J. McCarthy might have slipped him a few $100,000 to just play like shit. He looked that bad. This was, in your debut, this is your first impression. What are you trying to do here? You're stumbling as you're getting the snap. You're looking around as the ball is being snapped to you. You're going 15 yards backwards to try and avoid a sack. You have to have the understanding to know it's time to throw the ball away. You don't want to take huge sacks like that. But you don't. It's not necessarily the way to help your team. Okay, you might not want to throw an interception. You might not want to throw an incompletion because of your own personal stats. You got to throw that stuff out the window when it comes to the group around you who are all playing to try to achieve the same thing. Just a lot of immaturity out of the quarterback play in this game. He started in place of J.J. McCarthy, hoping to bring a spark to this disappointing 4-7 Minnesota Vikings defense. He would get the Vikings into a spot where they could either take a lead or tie the game. They were right there on the goal line. The Seahawks started slow, as they have the last few weeks. That's something to look into with Sam Darnold here. Where the Seahawks were, it was a 3-0 game. The Vikings are right down there on the goal line, except on this goal line play, Seattle defense came. Seattle defense is who showed up. Well aware of how they let teams back in the last few weeks, and they took advantage of the rookie quarterback throwing the ball away during a sack to pick it off and take it to the house. He underhand threw the ball. Like, where are you going with? Just grow up, man. The Vikings would bring great pressure against their former quarterback, Sam Darnold, but Zach Charbonnet and the sure leg of Jason Myers and the new legion of defense there in Seattle would help lift the Seahawks to their first shutout in 10 years, beating the Minnesota Vikings 26-0. James Cook wasted no time, gashing the Steelers. It was a 4 o'clock game. They probably wanted to get home before the sun went down, but it was on the East Coast, and the sun goes down at 4 o'clock. Nonetheless, the Steelers' defense on the run game was just getting gashed over and over. It was a game that both teams needed badly. But Josh Allen, he had a couple turnovers here, and it all started to seem to crumble. The Steelers took the lead very early, and the pocket collapsed on the ensuing drive, which found Cam Hayward on top of Josh Allen. What would kill most men, Cam Hayward being the man with the biggest head in football. I think he wears a size 4XL helmet. I mean, his head is literally the size. If you take two basketballs and put them on top, regulation NBA basketballs, and put them on top of each other, that would probably be his chin to the top of his head. So that's the type of mammoth we're talking about here. Nonetheless, Cam Hayward was on top of Josh Allen. This moment, this interaction in the game, there was some pushing on the ground. Cam Hayward kind of pushing off of Josh Allen. Josh Allen didn't like that. They started talking shit to one another. And we all know what happens when Josh Allen gets laser eyes. Josh Allen got laser eyes after that and went scorched earth. The Bills would go on a 26-0 run and win this game 26-7. Josh Allen found the end zone himself one time, and he also did some charity work, getting Keon Coleman into the end zone, the troubled young wide receiver missing meetings, taking disciplinary DNPs throughout the season. He gets himself a touchdown in this game, and congratulations to the young bull. Seriously, shout out Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman loves cookies, and I love cookies too. Shout out to my beautiful girlfriend, Sammy, for making me some cookies. They're currently on the microwave, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to record the rest of this podcast with cookies on the microwave. So we'll move on. Geno Smith throws the balls at such silly times. Sometimes, or he just doesn't. Last week he took 10 sacks. This week he took a couple as well. But even with Justin Herbert, hurt, the Raiders had no chance catching up to Kamani Vidal. He made a name for himself this year, without a doubt, hands down, running behind a broken line this week to the tune of 95-plus yards every single game that he's getting 15 carries or more. And it's also translated to a bunch of wins. So if I was Jim Harbaugh, I would just continue to hand this guy the ball, regardless of how much time you have on the clock or if you're behind or not. Justin Herbert's great right now, but I'm pretty sure he broke his hand in this game. Had a few fiery interactions with Max Crosby that were really exciting in this division rivalry. Max Crosby just getting in the face and the grill of all these quarterbacks. And unfortunately, another poor soul, much like Myles Garrett, much like TJ Watt, who were destined to be great football players on the worst football teams, because the Raiders did not do any favors for the great play of their defensive line as they got squashed 31-14, which leads me to the grand finale of Week 13, my New England Patriots. Look at that. Oh, sugar. Wow, that's embarrassing, but who cares? We let it fly. Look at that. You see that over there? That's my pillow. That's my Patriots pillow. And there was a point in this season where I thought I was going to take that doormat that sits outside of my door that says "Welcome Patriots fans" with a Patriots logo and that Patriots pillow. And there was a time in this season where I thought I was going to need to hide them. And this week the Patriots head into their bye. And they head into their bye after winning 10 games in a row, advancing to 11-2. They headlined Monday night against New York and the New York Giants. Scott Van Pelt said it best at halftime, before the game was even over. He said that one team is 2-10, and one team is 10-2, and they're both playing like it. So think about that, right? The Patriots go into the game 10-2. They played like a team that's great. And I think that's something that's a little bit overlooked. We talk about the strength of schedule a lot in the NFL, which is interesting to me because these are all the best players in the world. So no matter what team we're playing, we're still playing a team of players that are comprised of some of the most physically gifted athletes in the world. I don't want to hear anything about an easy schedule, about a hard schedule. This is professional sports. It's supposed to be difficult. So, shut up with that. What Drake May does in this game is not only go for 282 yards and 2 touchdowns, he dropped balls in buckets. I'm convinced that if Drake May was throwing go routes to Helen Keller, he would still put the ball in a bucket no matter where she thought she was. She wouldn't even need to catch. She wouldn't need to move her hands. Just go, hey, Helen, hold your arms like this. Okay, hold them like this and run if she was real. But she's not. So, but if she was, she'd be the best wide receiver if Drake May was. His ball placement is out of this world. It's something that I noticed earlier in this season when he was painting the sideline with Stephon Diggs. The camaraderie behind the team is just the energy that the team is playing with is just so much different than it was last year or years before. They're playing like they're having fun. And are you happy because you're winning, or do you win because you're happy? That's the age-old question in sports, but I think that these guys are happy regardless. I think they're already impressed with how far they've made it this season. I think their turnaround is one of the best in generations, and who cares because I'm biased, but I think that this Mike Vrabel takeover will have to be studied for decades. There was points in this game where it kind of looked like we were vulnerable. Devin Singletary broke off a few runs, but then our defense just played with a fire and a fervor that we have guys flying around out there like Troy Polamalu. We have guys like Christian Ellis, okay? Christian Ellis, a guy you never really thought you ever knew. And he makes a name for himself on a primetime game. This is 2 primetime games this year that we've taken complete advantage of and used the stage to show how complete of a football team we are on defense, offense, and special teams. Marcus Jones returns another punt for a touchdown after doing it a few weeks ago against the Jets and earlier in the season against the Dolphins. I mean, the team is complete. We can score in every facet of the ball, and we will if you make some mistakes. Believe that. We clobbered Jackson Dart. There's so much talk of a late hit being a dirty hit on the sideline. I don't think it was dirty at all. As a matter of fact, I think I should probably pull that up. I mean, the way we played on Monday night, it really fired me up. And now we go into a bye week late in the season, which is great. And I think that I don't know. Well, I don't think we'll win a Super Bowl, okay? That's one thing. But I definitely do think that we're capable of making a push in the playoffs. I think that we're a dangerous team. I think that people are mad that we're good again. Okay, I got the video here. You guys are going to love this. Sammy thinks we're going to win the Super Bowl. Shout out. We're winning the Super Bowl. Here we go. This caused a scuffle on the sidelines. There was talks of it being a late hit. I don't necessarily think it was because Jackson Dart is now known for his kind of immaturity here. Like, you got to go out of bounds way sooner. And I get that he's trying to milk every bit that he can. It may have looked like he was trending in the direction of out of bounds, but he was not out of bounds. So that is just a good, clean football hit. Watch the body launch. Pow! Oh, that is just pure speed and momentum. And people are like, that's a really hard hit. That's a vicious hit. That's not right. I mean, you got to look at the hit that Pat McAfee laid on Trenton Holiday back in the day. I mean, that is basically like a punter hit, and you got to chill out. You got to be able to take those, especially if you're Jackson Dart. Are you gonna shy away from the contact? You talk about being such a dog. He didn't seem to be too upset about it. His team was, which is great. That's a great sign for the Giants if you're looking towards the future, which you must be at 2-11 right now. You can't really be thinking you're making it to the playoffs this year. So, yeah, at least you have something to look forward to. Like, hey, my team really loves my quarterback, and he's good. He's really good, and he's gonna be good. There's a ton of potential for Jackson Dart moving forward, but not last week against the Patriots. Shout out to the Patriots. They're on bye now, and then they will go on to play the Buffalo Bills which is going to be my first NFL game. I am so excited and blessed to be going to this game. I'm honestly truly blessed that I have such a wonderful person in my life who would do something like this for me. It's special. It's special. That somebody would take notice of something that I am passionate about and go out of their way to do something like this. I have the best girlfriend in the world, so shout out to her. But also, shout out to the Patriots, who, if they win this game against the Buffalo Bills in Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, 1 week from today, as you're listening to this, we win the AFC East. That is a hat and t-shirt game if we win. So, sorry, when we win. There was a time this year I was scared of the Bills. As a football fan, I'm not afraid of anything. What I am afraid of, though, is giving you a bad pick. So we got to look into this game, and we got to look into the rest of the slate. Before we hop off of TikTok Live, I will give out the Thursday Night Football pick, who is going to be an exciting matchup between two fiery offenses. The Detroit Lions at home once again in Detroit against the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, we have Dak Prescott coming into this game, having a great season, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Jahmyr Gibbs proving to be more of a world beater, as he always is. Gibbs has been playing great ever since he came into the league, and now this year taking a brunt of the carries as opposed to David Montgomery coming into this one with 175 carries and 1,000 yards. He's already broached 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns for the guy. Here's the surprise here is George Pickens taking up the wide receiver slot here. CeeDee Lamb missed a few games this year, but even before that, CeeDee Lamb had some problem with drops earlier in the season, and Pickens has been consistent all season to a tune of 73 receptions and 1,142 yards with 5 games to play. So he's playing great, 8 touchdowns. He's a huge deep ball threat, which is something that Dak Prescott has always been good at. That is kind of his finesse and his forte, is his ability to move the ball down the field. Heavily overlooked because he plays for the Cowboys. So you hear about the Cowboys every single week, almost every single day. If you're listening to sports radio or sports talk at all, everybody is incessantly talking about the Cowboys. So whether they're playing good or bad, it's always impinging upon the result of the last week. So your opinion of the quarterback can change from week to week. And in this case, in my case all year, I think he definitely is one of those MVP caliber quarterbacks this year. At 3,200 yards, it's an amazing clip. It's amazing what he's been able to do with that team, even being at 6-5 right now. 5 weeks ago, you would not be talking about the Dallas Cowboys as you are. And I think you could say the same about the Lions, who showed some weaknesses early in the season, losing to the Packers. They showed some weaknesses throughout. And their biggest weakness right now is their inability to do what they've done. Something that made the Packers so dangerous, something that made the Lions so dangerous over the last few years is their gusto, their guts, in how they'll do it at any moment. They'll take the biggest risks. They're converting fourth downs at a tremendous rate. They're going for it in very questionable situations, but they're pushing the urgency and they're pushing the pedal down to make sure that all things are clicking on all cylinders. This year, that has become an inability of theirs. Earlier in the season, they went 13-17 throughout the first 10 weeks of the season on fourth down. Since that, they've been 0-4, and a couple of those were crucial against the Packers on Thanksgiving. Set up in situations where they could kick a field goal and put points on the board. They opt to go for it on fourth down, and they're just not connecting that they were last year. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of Ben Johnson drawing up the offense because of his ability and what he's doing in Chicago. I'm not going to talk about that too much right now during the Thursday pick because I want to talk about it for the Bears when I highlight them. And part of that waning, part of that wavering, that's going to be exactly why I'm hinging on the Dallas Cowboys to continue their run right now. And I look at it for two reasons, okay? And this logic is going to come in for these two reasons, and it's going to be for a couple games as well. Where we are in the season right now. December is the most important stretch of football in the NFL. After Thanksgiving is always the most important stretch of football in the NFL. And the reason is because you're running out of games, you're running out of time, you're running out of reasons to hide those plays that you've been sitting on all season. You're running out of reasons why not to be aggressive, and people play like it matters more. It matters more because the playoffs are approaching and you know whether you're on the bubble in the hunt or not. And the Cowboys, surprisingly, this year, are the only other team that can compete with the Philadelphia Eagles, beating them once this season. And now they have a shot to take over the number one seed in the NFC East. Not once since 2002, I believe it is. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's 2002. There has not been a back-to-back NFC East winner in the NFL. This year, the way that the Eagles have kind of come to a stuttering halt, I don't think that this is going to be the year that it happens. I think it's more likely that the Cowboys come from behind and use this momentum they found, use this fiery young energy from their new coach, Brian Schottenheimer, and find a way to win games consistently, beginning with this game right here. Tonight, the Dallas Cowboys will defeat the Detroit Lions. And it will happen in exciting fashion. This is going to be a high-scoring, close game. Both defenses lacking quite a bit. As the Cowboys have kind of picked up here, I think the success for the Lions is going to be all based on Jahmyr Gibbs. How many times can you get the ball in that guy's hand and let him do what he has to do with open field? It's not going to be schemed open. You're not going to find a way to dink and dunk on the Cowboys right here. You're going to just have to provide a true attrition of will, especially with the way that Jared Goff has been having to fight through pressure all season. So the Cowboys, their pass rush, their ability to stop the run, this is what I'm hanging my hat on. Here, they'll be able to hold off the Lions on a couple more drives than the Lions will be able to hold off the Cowboys. The Lions are playing without Amon-Ra St. Brown tonight. I think that's a big deal. I think that kind of makes their offense more one-dimensional, and that is not what they need right now in the season, and that is not what they need against the Detroit Cowboys, and I am so afraid for what's going to happen to Dan Campbell if they drop 2 in a row at home. Okay, so I am off live. And I am moving on to the rest of the picks in the slate before I get ready for the game. We have Seattle and Atlanta. This is Seattle by a landslide. Atlanta, unfortunately, Michael Penix in the torn ACL. That is not going to be something that heals this season, and that is not going to fix the offensive woes, which really there's not a ton of offensive woes. I mean, you got a running back who's 5 yards away from an 1,000-yard season, as well as receiving a ton. But the Seahawks defense is no joke. You can't go into this with any kind of chink in your armor, so to say. So the Seattle Seahawks will win this one handedly, just as the Cleveland Browns will win. I won't say handedly in this one, but I do believe that they have the upper hand when it comes to playing Tennessee. Tennessee has the better quarterback, but Cleveland has the better overall team, and I think it's going to be a whole team effort to get them the win here in Cleveland in the 1 o'clock game. We have some big games here this week, some huge divisional matchups that mean a lot, and this one is one of them. The Packers and the Bears moved to 425. Awesome that we got flexed a little bit later here. But the Packers and the Bears, this game means a ton for the NFC North. The Bears at 9-3 and the Packers at 8-3. Jordan Love, he's playing, he's not turning the ball over a bunch this season, but he's also not being very decisive, not making quick decisions with it, and he doesn't really have a number one threat out there. The Bears, their pass game has kind of been lacking quite a bit. However, their run game is phenomenal, as we talked about earlier. And what Ben Johnson is able to do with the run game has just been something to really turn this franchise around. Their defense is playing with a different fire. I think having Dennis Allen, a former head coach, as your defensive coordinator plays a huge part in that. But I just think that they believe in it. They believe in what's going on over there, and it's amazing to watch. Where we were when is an entirely and completely different place than where we are right now. It's phenomenal to see a franchise turn around like that, and the Bears and the Patriots are right there as the two best teams. I give Chicago the edge here. I think their defense. This is a defensive matchup 100%. And I don't think it's going to be the quarterbacks that make the plays in this. I think it's going to be the running backs. I think it's really going to come down to the run game. And when Ben Johnson is able to scheme open in the holes he's able to get out of his offensive line, it's going to be no joke for the Green Bay Packers, who are going to be chasing DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai all day. You have Washington and Minnesota. This one's kind of a stinker. I'm giving it to Washington. I'm giving it to Washington because they have trusty quarterback play here. Marcus Mariota is much more serviceable than anybody that Minnesota can trot out right now. And Terry McLaurin, I mean, he brought that game to overtime against the Denver Broncos last week. So I'm going with Washington here. I'm going with Miami when it comes to Miami and the Jets. I just think that Miami's too fast. The Jets have been beat just too often by speed this season, and Miami has the edge there. Tampa Bay has to get a win over New Orleans. New Orleans offense, they dink and dunk from time to time, but their defense is pretty susceptible to some deep shots, and I think that's what Tampa Bay has right up their sleeve for them. You have Indianapolis and Jacksonville, a huge divisional matchup here, and you have Daniel Jones, who's coming out to play as a much different Daniel Jones weeks beforehand. 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the season. It's really going to have to lean on Jonathan Taylor here, because you don't want to keep the ball in Daniel Jones' hands too often in this game. Daniel Jones being on a broken leg, it's going to be tough for him to stay upright and throw and deliver the ball with conviction and power. So we have to leave Daniel Jones in the pocket. We have to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor and let him make some holes here. That's a lot of work. That's a lot that you're asking for out of the offense. And you're also asking a team to go to a place and win a game where they haven't won in years. I just think there's some allure around that. And you have hot and cold battling one another right here. And I think the hot overtakes the cold, and Jacksonville gets a win over their division rival, the Indianapolis Colts. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, division rivalry, yet again. It has to be the Ravens. I know that they just took a loss to Cincinnati, and I know that the Steelers are coming off a loss to the Bills. However, all the rumblings out of Pittsburgh are just terrible. They seem like they're defeating themselves. They're not coming together at all. They're all pissed off at one another, and that's not a cohesive team. I don't see that out of the Ravens. I see a team that's been pushing and battling back throughout this stretch of the season. So I have to give the edge to Baltimore there, and the Baltimore Ravens getting a much-needed division win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Denver is at Las Vegas. Denver wins. Las Vegas sucks, man. Their season's over. Cincinnati at Buffalo. This could be a biased pick now that I think about it. I could just be such a nice and gentle fan, and not a shit talker, where I'm thinking about this no, Joe Burrow's back. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Buffalo Bills. That's all I really got to say there. The Rams, they need a win, okay? And they have a chance to get a huge get-back win here against a division divisional opponent, which will help them when it comes to come playoff times. So I think that this game is going to mean a little bit more to the Rams than maybe playing the Panthers did. Rams beat Arizona. Sunday Night Football. Houston, the number one defense, against Kansas City and the Chiefs, and the number one quarterback in the league. The problem with the number one quarterback is that just nothing is cohesively moving on his team. That collapse, really, against the Cowboys kind of, I don't know, that was the hole in the sail, if you will, for the Kansas City Chiefs getting in the playoff boat. I don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs this year. They might entirely miss, because on Sunday Night Football, the Houston Texans and the number one defense will smother Patrick Mahomes and make him flustered and make it hard for him to stay upright, make him have to use his feet to win the game. And when it comes down to it, the secondary will be there to stop the receivers from improvising and getting themselves open. And the Texans and the number one defense will show you why. Defense wins regular season championships. Sunday Night Football. The Houston Texans defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. Monday Night Football. The Philadelphia Eagles face off against the LA Chargers in LA. This is a little bit of a cupcake game here, I think, for Philadelphia. Why do I say that? Because Herbert's hurt. And if they don't play Herbert, who broke something in his hand, what are they going to... They're going to throw out Trey Lance. Nothing against Trey Lance or anything, but I just think I think the Eagles are pissed. I think last week was kind of the last straw, if you will, and they're going to battle back a bit here, and they're going to show the LA Chargers what type of team that they could really be. That's all I can hope for here. We need Saquon to get moving here. I think that they can push the ball against the Chargers and their defense. Their defense was flying around against the Raiders last week. However, I mean, once again, we were playing the Raiders, so that recency bias here, it's not really something that I can hedge my bets on, but that's just what that is. That's just what that is. This week, Dallas, Seattle, Cleveland, Chicago, Washington, Miami, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, Baltimore, Denver, Cincinnati, Rams, Houston, Philadelphia. That's a winning ticket. And that's a winning podcast. I'm up out of here. It's late on a Thursday night. I got to get up early for work. You know what the deal is. But I still wanted to hop in, give a little motivation, give a little inspiration, give a little love, and a little saturation, and spread some pics for everybody here today. As always, it's all love. Follow me on social media. Like, subscribe, comment, bump of TTS on Twitter. BookmarksWbump at TikTok. BookmarksWbump at gmail.com. If you need any help with personal training, or if you have any threads you'd like to suggest or throw in the ring here. This is a interactive show. Please interact. As always, it's all love. God bless. I always do that.
I'm in that rider. Every time that I call past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm in that rider. Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire.